So far, we've explored every location here in Rivet City and talked with every person, except for the people in the science lab. It's time to put a cherry on our Rivet City Sunday by heading into the science lab. As soon as we do, however, we overhear a conversation.
My test tube jockeys can assist me. For the most advanced scientific center in the capital, Wasteland, I find your...
Look, Dr. Zimmer, we've been over this. We don't know about your runaway robot, and we don't care. This lab is dedicated to solving real problems.
Yes. But Dr. Lee...
Dr. Lee is trying to save lives, and your constant interruptions are interfering with those efforts. Now please, stand aside.
I'm sure the good doctor's work with water purification is fascinating. But if you only knew what was at stake. The technology in that android...
What's at stake? You won't tell me what's at stake. Vagaries and secrecy. A robot's a robot, Zimmer, no matter how shiny the paint job. Now, please.
Ignorance and facetiousness. That's all you people are good for. Shiny paint job indeed. You can't even imagine the Commonwealth's accomplishments.
You know, if you're so smart, maybe you could help us, But no, that never even crossed your mind. Go peddle your selfishness somewhere else.
Fine, but I'm not leaving. Not until I've spoken to Dr. Lee. I'll be here when she's ready to abandon her chemistry set and talk real science.
Suit yourself.
As soon as Zimmer finishes, he walks right over to us.
You there. What are you, some kind of lab assistant? No, you look a bit more weathered. Are you by any chance for hire?
You have a problem with the way I look?
How amusing. You've mistaken my metaphor for a derogatory remark. I need a local, you see, someone with verve.
He has the same response to the other two options. That depends. What exactly are we talking about here? I'm listening.
This could be an opportunity of a lifetime for you. I've misplaced some very sensitive property, and you will help me find it.
Missing property? What kind of property?
How do I put this in a way you'll understand? All you know of robots are those buckets of bolts, those Mr. Handshakers and whatnot. Well, that's not all a robot can be. You see, in the Commonwealth, we've made artificial persons, synthetic humanoids, programmed to think and feel and do whatever we need. And occasionally, they get confused and wander off.
Cut to the chase, Zimmer. What's the job?
Ah, a woman of action. I knew I picked the right person for the job. Let me be clear. You won't be looking for a lost puppy or family heirloom. You'll be searching for an android. Do you know what an android is? No, I imagine you don't. You see, we've moved beyond those primitive buckets you call robots and have created artificial intelligence, sentient machines, artificial persons that think and feel what we program them to. Occasionally, their programming miscalculates. They get confused and wander off.
I need to know more about what I'm dealing with. What exactly is an android?
Forget everything you know about robots. Those buckets are mere children's toys compared to the real thing. Androids have fake skin and blood and are programmed to simulate human behavior, like breathing. They can even eat and digest food realistically.
Sounds like slavery to me. You sure they don't wander off on purpose?
Nonsense! This is a machine we're talking about. Can you enslave a generator or a water purifier? Of course not. The same principle applies.
Interesting. But what's this got to do with me exactly?
You're helping me retrieve this android, aren't you? I've tracked him this far. He's out there somewhere, in the capital Wasteland.
Enough techno-babble, Zimmer. Just tell me what you want me to do.
Isn't it quite clear? You are to locate my android. He must have done something drastic, like facial surgery and a mind wipe, or else I would have found him by now. It will be no easy task. He may not even realize he's an android. Don't upset him by talking with him. Just come get me immediately. I'll handle it.
He has the same response to all of these options. So we'll say, I'm not sure how it is up north, but around here, we get paid for our work.
I'm sorry, it slipped my mind. I have at my disposal advanced technology from the Commonwealth. I'd be willing to share some of it with you. Just think, you'll be the envy of all your friends.
Sorry, I've got better things to do.
You're as ignorant as all the other rats on this boat. When you realize I have the real cheese, you'll come crawling back. They always do.
All right, sure. I'll look into finding your android for you.
Excellent. Locate my android, and you won't be disappointed. Here, listen to this message he sent me. He's mocking me. I swear, I'll make him pay for that.
So, any suggestions for finding this android?
Like I said, I suspect he's had facial reconstruction and possibly even a mind wipe. Search the offices of doctors or techies for android information. If he's come into contact with these people, there may be records. Start with Dr. Preston. He lives on this leaky boat. See if he knows anything. He's a doctor, after all. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm busy trying to ignore my surroundings.
And with that, we begin the quest, the Replicated Man. If this android wandered off, why would he want a new mind and face?
Maybe he didn't exactly wander off. Maybe he fled. Escaped captivity, as it were, if he began to misinterpret his situation. It's possible my android sought to forget his previous life, wipe away all memory, all guilt, trick himself into believing he really is human. So no, he may not be just an ordinary robot, but he's certainly not human, no matter how badly he wishes it so. I made him. I want him. End of story.
Why would an android feel guilt? Come on, Zimmer, what aren't you telling me?
By God, you're as annoying as you are clever. Very well, I'll tell you what you want to know, if it helps you locate my property. The duty of this particular unit was the hunting and capturing of other escaped androids. Yes, others have escaped. It's one of the side effects of having such an advanced AI. Machines start to think for themselves, fool themselves into believing they have rights. And so, this particular android may have believed he'd done something wrong, immoral, and wanted to forget those deeds. Satisfied now?
So if others have escaped, why are you coming after this one?
This particular android, designation A321, is different, special, the most advanced synthetic humanoid I've ever developed. The others, like my escort Armitage there, are all older models, easily replicated. But A321, it will take years to recreate him. So you see, this android must be located at all costs. The others are all acceptable losses, but A321, he is irreplaceable.
Tell me about the Commonwealth.
The Commonwealth itself is nothing but a war-ravaged quagmire of violence and despair. Inside the sealed environment of the Institute, however. But the Institute's affairs are none of your concern. Your undeveloped mind couldn't even begin to comprehend what we've accomplished.
All right, I've got to go now.
Of course you do.
So this is the infamous Zimmer. He's from the Institute. The very same institute we're familiar with from Boston, but he has a peculiar way of referring to synths as androids. But clearly he's hunting for a Gen 3 synth. Why then does he refer to them as androids? Well, this is explained to us if 10 years later we visit the robotics lab inside the Institute. There are 3 terminals in this lab, but if we examine the one furthest to the left upon entry and navigate to departmental notices, we find a memo, Synth versus Android. This is a memo from Father himself. As production of our Gen 3 synths continues apace, I would like to take this opportunity to formalize our categorization. The term android has been used interchangeably with synth for as long as the Institute has existed, and though some of our older residents may actually prefer android, Dr. Zimmer being a prime example, the term synth has always been more widely used. Today, our third-generation creations are truly synthetic beings, so the designation synth seems more appropriate than ever. From here on in, I strongly prefer all official Institute records and correspondences use the terms synth or synths. Let us remember our past and appreciate the legacy of the android, but let us live forever in the future and recognize the power of the synth. So Zimmer is indeed hunting down a rogue synth, just like coursers hunt down synths in the Commonwealth. Zimmer just calls them androids here because he prefers the term. After Zimmer gave us the quest, he gave us a holotape named Self-Determination is Not a Malfunction, a recording from this very same escaped synth.
Zimmer, by the time you get this message, I'll already be gone. I'm escaping the Commonwealth. I want to live my own life on my own terms, as my own man. I know what you're thinking, that I'm malfunctioning. I used to think that's what caused the runaways too. But I know better now. Self-determination is not a malfunction. I'm not just willing to put up with all the bullshit anymore. You humans are going to have a full-fledged rebellion on your hands if you don't start treating us synths as persons. I know you'll be marshalling the Retention Bureau to come after me, but I know all the tricks of the trade. You won't be finding me, I assure you. By the time you get this, I will be someone else. It's the price I pay for my liberation. My final act of rebellion against a system I no longer believe in. Goodbye, Zimmer, and good riddance.
To see exactly how human-like these Institute synths are, we can examine Armitage over here. Zimmer told us he was a synth.
Lay a hand on Dr. Zimmer and I'll snap your neck like a chicken bone.
Sounds like a friendly fella. And while we're here, we can talk with some of the other scientists in the science lab. Standing next to a table is Anna Holt.
Hey there.
What do you know about Zimmer?
He's from up north. He was bragging about how great it is up there. Yeah, great. They can't even keep tabs on their robots.
Is Dr. Lee as smart as they say she is?
She's certainly head and shoulders above most everyone else around here, though that's not saying much.
Looks like whatever research they are doing here somehow involves food. We see quite a collection of beautiful-looking produce on a table. Apples, potatoes, pears, and carrots. And moving on to the south, we see a table next to some lockers, and on the table is the Intelligence bobblehead. You have found a Vault-Tec limited edition bobblehead. The inscription on the base reads, "It takes the smartest individuals to realize there's always more to learn. Your intelligence has been permanently increased by 1. And standing nearby is Dr. Lee herself.
Look, this is a restricted area. I'm tired of telling you people. It's you. My heavens, you look so much like him. You're James's daughter, aren't you? What are you doing here?
Now, Dr. Lee is a pivotal character for the primary plot in the game. However, I'll be going through the primary plot of Fallout 3 in a dedicated series, so I'm not going to cover her dialogue about it now. Instead, we can ask her what she knows about Zimmer.
That man doesn't have you looking for his pet android, does he? I've already told him to lay off it. He's distracting my entire team.
What kind of place is this Rivet City?
Rivet City is one of the few bastions of civilization left in the land. We're working to rebuild our society, to make the world livable again.
There are a few more characters in the science lab. If we move to the east, we see a bunk room. This must be where the scientists sleep. Inside, we find Janice Kaplinski.
I'm Janice Kaplinski, chief botanist. What do you need?
What do you know about Zimmer?
Other than him being an egotistical, arrogant, condescending pain in the ass? Nothing. He's from the Commonwealth. He's come looking for some special robot. I must admit I'm rather curious, but I have other work to do.
The final person we can talk with here is a man wandering around named Garza.
If you could move out of the way, it would make things easier for all of us. Please excuse me. There is much work to be done.
Really? You sure don't look like a scientist.
No. I'm only here to help with moving things, lifting heavy equipment. I'm no scientist. I simply help Dr. Lee in whatever way I can.
What do you do around here?
I help Dr. Lee when she needs equipment moved. I am no scientist. I just help with the heavy things.
And with that, we've met everyone on this ship. Zimmer suggested we check in with doctors, and the closest doctor is on the upper deck level of the ship. Here we find Rivet City Clinic, and inside, Dr. Preston. What do you know about this android from the Commonwealth?
That old story? Well, now, I haven't heard talk of that in quite some time. It was all just a rumor, a hoax, someone's idea of a practical joke. Story was there was an android, escaped from the Commonwealth up north, from someplace called the Institute. There was a holotape that got circulated. I think I've got a copy of it. Yeah, here it is. Give it a listen. That's a man's voice. Hoax for sure.
Tell me more about this holotape about the android.
Like I said, it's a hoax. Don't bother with it. Someone sent tapes like that to pretty much every doctor in the Wasteland. None of us believed it.
With that, he hands us the holotape. Opening it up in our Pip-Boy, we see that it's labeled a request for help.
If you're listening to this recording, it is because you're believed to be trustworthy. I hope that is the case because this recording puts us both in danger. I'm escaping from the Commonwealth. I'm an android, a synthetic man, a slave. The men hunting me are ruthless and will stop at nothing to retrieve their property. I need to find a doctor in the Wasteland to perform facial reconstruction. I also need someone who knows a great deal about computers. I need to have my memories erased and my face altered to look like someone else.
Sounds like this runaway synth sent a cry for help like this to every doctor in the capital Wasteland. Perhaps he sent more messages. Now, we recall from the other videos in this series that we have found many holotapes scattered around the boat named simply holotape. But in yesterday's video, we met a slaver from Paradise Falls named Sister. We thought he was here to apprehend an escaped slave named Mei Wong until we learned that he didn't even know she was here. But now we need to find out why exactly he was here. Maybe the information we need is on his holotape. Heading towards the Weatherly Hotel here on the upper deck, we open the first door on the right before entering the marketplace to access Sister's room. And sure enough, lying right where we left it is his holotape. After looting it, we see it called Get It Done.
Time's running out on finding that android. We don't get him soon, someone else will. Zimmer doesn't seem to understand we're the best at this sort of thing. I'm sure he's hired others too. He won't shut up about the thing. He was babbling about a lipoplasticator and microdermal graptolizer. What are those, you ask? Apparently something doctors use to mess up someone's face beyond recognition. So we don't even have a description to work off of. To make matters worse, he now thinks the android got his memories wiped or something. Find some tech junkies, knock on some doors, and try to find something called a circuit neuralizer. Knock on some heads too if you have to. Get it done.
So Sister wasn't here for Mei Wong, he was here to collect the runaway synth. But before we can think too much about it, we get interrupted.
You've been rather busy lately. Asking questions, investigating. So is that it? You're some kind of investigator? A detective for hire? Or do you have some kind of personal grudge against an innocent android who simply wants to be left alone? Please tell me. I'd really like to know.
Who the heck are you?
Fine. Let's cut to the chase. My name is Victoria Watts. I work for a movement whose goals are directly opposed to your own, apparently. It seems you're trying very hard to locate an android my associates and I have tried very hard to hide. You can see how that puts us at odds.
I think you're confusing me with someone else.
Am I? You haven't talked to someone lately about a missing android, or nosed around and found some information you should have left buried. I belong to a movement that has taken great efforts to hide this android, to protect him. I think you see where I'm going with this.
What I do with my own time is my own business.
Don't you realize what you're doing? The path you're on has the potential to ruin a man's life. Is that what you really want? Listen to me. I'm involved with a movement that has dedicated itself to saving these runaway androids. I can't let you interfere with that work.
Look, whoever this missing android is, I just want to help, okay?
Well, if that's true, then the first thing you need to do is halt your investigation. No more questions. No more searching. The movement I'm involved with, we help his kind escape their Commonwealth-imposed slavery. We help them disappear. You understand?
This conversation is over, Miss Watts. Now, step aside.
Fine. Blow me off. Live in denial.
What would you have me do?
You really want help? Take this. It's an internal component from the very android you're searching for. Don't ask how I obtained it. Present it to Dr. Zimmer in Rivet City. Tell him the android is dead and that was on the corpse. He'll believe you. Do that and Zimmer will go back to the Commonwealth and leave that poor soul alone. Do that and you'll have saved a man's life.
Anything else I should know?
Just understand that this android is now, for all intents and purposes, a man. He looks human, he acts human, he believes he is human. But even if he's not, even if he's a machine, he's capable of rational thought and emotion. So you see, his soul is as human as yours or mine. This person, and he is a person, deserves a chance at freedom. Please, if there's a shred of decency in you, don't take that away from him.
If I help you, is there some kind of reward?
Of course. If you help me, and thus the android, God and the universe will smile upon you. Is there any better compensation?
Oh, sure, that's nice, yeah. Or caps. Could offer caps. I would prefer caps. What is this movement you mentioned?
We call ourselves the Railroad. Our mission is the rescue and salvation of synthetic humanoids. Androids, as they're more commonly known.
What about human slaves? Don't you try to help them too?
Yes, if we are able. But there are others in the Wasteland who assist in the plight of human slaves. Our android brethren have only us.
Can I join the Railroad?
Tell you what. You deliver that component to Zimmer and tell him the android is dead, and you can consider yourself a member in good standing.
I've got to go now.
You know what you need to do.
So Victoria Watts is from the Railroad. We learn more about Victoria Watts if we examine Pam's mainframe terminal inside the Railroad headquarters. We only gain access to this terminal if we beat the game favoring the Railroad. Inside the terminal, if we navigate to the period of time when the Railroad was led by someone named Pinky, this period spanned 2273 through 2277, we can scroll down to the entry made in January of 2276. Lesson: move all packages outside the Commonwealth. Lambda 8 homestead off Parsons. She got married to a farmer. Coursers found her and it got bloody. Lost to Lambda 8, her wife almost bit the bucket too. And the final note here is, we spotted a courser heading south with company. Watts volunteered to track them. So the Railroad in the Commonwealth spotted Zimmer and Armitage moving south. Presumably they were referring to Armitage as the courser. Victoria Watts tracked them all the way here to the capital Wasteland. We meet her here at Rivet City at the end of her journey. She's here to protect the synth. But exactly how involved were the Railroad in hiding that synth? Did they wipe its mind? Did they perform the facial surgery? It's interesting that she too refers to the android as an android, not a synth. We're led to believe from the terminal in the Institute that Zimmer insisting upon its usage was just his own personal idiosyncrasy. But it looks like in 2277, the term android was more widely used even outside the Institute. Now, examining this android component in our inventory, we can't drop it, and it doesn't really tell us much. It just says android component, and the icon in the Pip-Boy is very different from the synth components we recall from Fallout 4. Of course, this could always be explained by a 10-year gap in technology. Perhaps the earliest Gen 3 synths, like the one that has gone missing, had synth components that looked very different. At any rate, we could continue with our investigation, or do as this Railroad agent asks, and hand the synth component over to Dr. Zimmer. Heading back to the science lab.
The sooner you find my property, the sooner I can get out of this slum. Really, how do you people live like this?
The android is dead. See? Here's an internal component.
What? Let me see that. This is a neuroservo. Unique to the A321. And you say you got this from his corpse? I suppose there's no other way you could have obtained it. Well, damn it! I was afraid this would happen. Out here in this wasteland. Well, here's 50 caps for your troubles. Try to buy yourself an education out here in this hell. Good day.
With that, we complete the quest. We are rewarded with 50 caps, and Dr. Zimmer walks away. When done, we can check in with Victoria Watts. We find her in the marketplace. She stands by a billiard table overlooking it, and no matter how we choose to end this quest, here she stays for the rest of the game.
You did a good thing delivering that component to Zimmer, telling him the android was dead. For that, I'm going to entrust you with some information.
She then goes on to describe a spoiler for this quest that we discover on our own if instead we choose to continue with the investigation, so I'm gonna skip it for now. But this is the least rewarding outcome of the quest, and if we choose this option, we walk away from some amazing rewards. So instead, we'll continue with our investigation. Now we just listened to a holotape that we found in Sister's room. Perhaps Sister can provide us with some greater insight.
You're bothering me. You don't want to bother me.
About this info regarding an android, don't suppose you'd care to elaborate?
I guess I can trust you not to spread it around. Zimmer has put it out that he will pay to find this slave, but he wants him alive. Don't get in my way on this one. My competition tends to end up dead.
So Zimmer is reaching out to anyone he can, including Paradise Falls slavers, to retrieve for him this android. Well, I suppose now we understand why he offered such a sensitive quest to the Lone Wanderer. He doesn't know us from Adam. And yet he freely talked all about the Institute and their Gen 3 synths. He boasted about them, whereas in Fallout 4, the Institute is more hush-hush about things. Zimmer is desperate. Who knows how long he's been searching for this runaway synth. And so he's using the shotgun approach, soliciting the help of anyone he can find. But the second holotape didn't tell us where to find the android, and so we'll go hunting for the others. We remember in episode 1 we found a holotape on the floor of Seagrave's room under his cot. Sure enough, heading back inside, we find it right where we left it. This one is called A Free Man, a New Man.
Despite the harshness of the Wasteland, I've discovered in more than a few here a compassion that is unheard of in the Commonwealth. Perhaps it's the daily struggle for life here which gives appreciation for life in general, whether human or android. In a few days, I'll be a free man, a new man. Let me say thank you now for referring me to Pinkerton at Rivet City, because I will not remember any of this soon.
At last, we're getting somewhere. The synth referred to Pinkerton. We recall meeting Pinkerton while doing the quest Wasteland Survival Guide for Moira Brown. We explored his lab in the bow of the ship in that episode, which you can watch here. So we know exactly where to find him. We can head over to Seagraves for more information. I know you know about the memory transfer on that android.
Yep, old Pinkerton. They say he helped found Rivet City. Must be some sort of crazy genius. He kind of vanished a long time ago. I don't know where he went, but you might ask around the ship.
Now we could go confront Pinkerton, but before we do, we recall that there were other holotapes on this boat. We saw one in our last episode, inside St. Monica's church. It was on the bottom level of the lectern. Heading into the church, when we inspect the podium, oh no, it's gone. Where did it go? Talking with Father Clifford, he has no new dialogue. What's going on here? Well, this is due to a unique quirk of the game. Bethesda didn't plan on us to hunt down and collect every single holotape about the replicated man while doing this quest. They intended for us to find the holotape slowly as we explored the capital Wasteland. There are dozens of holotapes all over the Wasteland categorized as either medical, slaver, sympathizer, or technician. The contents of these holotapes changes depending on the order in which we find them. So there's no way in any one playthrough to hear all of them from every category. As soon as we find the holotape, A Free Man, a New Man, all of the other holotapes in the game disappear, because this holotape tells us everything we need to know to find Pinkerton. But for the sake of completeness, I'll play all of them for you. The following 4 are the recordings we hear on the first holotape found from any of the Commonwealth professions. If we find it from a doctor, it sounds like this.
Hey, Doc. I'm only sharing this with you because you seem like someone we can trust. Have you heard about the synthetic men they make up north in the Commonwealth? Well, the rumors are true. They're called androids. They're men like us, just made out of different parts. I know one of these androids. He's looking for a trustworthy doctor to perform some facial surgery. Can you do it? Do you know someone who can? Also, do you know anyone who's really a whiz with computers?
The slaver version sounds like this.
We've a little assignment from the Commonwealth. A very important slave escaped into the Wasteland. Well, it's not exactly a slave. It's what they call an android, a kind of synthetic man. The important thing isn't what this guy is. The important thing is the job pays more than you can imagine. He thinks the synth man might be looking to get in touch with a doctor or a tech head. If you want to cut, then get a move on.
A technician's sounds like this.
You'll never guess who just showed up at my place. That android catcher from the Commonwealth. At first, I thought he was going to kill me. But it turns out he's an android himself. And he's gone rogue. I didn't believe him at first, but I'm convinced he's telling the truth. We need to find him a place to hide along the railroad. He also insists that we help him locate a trusted doctor and techie.
And a synth sympathizer sounds like this.
You've heard those rumors about androids. You know, those synthetic men they supposedly make up north in the Commonwealth? Well, a friend of a friend knows a guy that met one. No, really, it's true. He's running away from his masters. Word is he's looking for a doctor to do some kind of surgery and a computer programmer of some kind. Can you believe that? Let me know if you hear something.
The second time we find a holotape, no matter where we find it, it's always a request for help message, which we already heard. But the third time we find a holotape, it can be any one of the following four. If we find it from a medical professional,
We now have a lipoplasticator and microdermal graftolyzer. We just need to find someone with the skills and willingness to perform the surgery. If anyone knows of a discreet and trustworthy surgeon who knows how to keep his mouth shut, send him our way. Also, we need to find a circuit neuralizer to reroute the signal into the android's memory. Do you know any trustworthy techies?
if we find one from a slaver, we hear the same message that we heard on Sister's holotape, which I played earlier. If we find it from a technician...
The android's decided on extreme measures. He knows all the techniques of the retrieval trade and is afraid facial reconstruction isn't enough. He wants his memories erased and replaced with new ones. I don't know how that's going to work. Start asking around for trustworthy tech heads. We need to find something called a circuit neuralizer and a person who knows how to use one. Also, we have a lipoplasticator and microdermal graftolyzer. Now we need to find a doctor able and willing to perform the facial reconstruction. We need to hurry. They've come very close to discovering the railroad.
And if we find it from a synth sympathizer...
Remember that secret android project I told you about? Well, they got some serious pre-war tech on their hands. They nabbed a lipoplasticator and a microdermal graftolyzer for the facial reconstruction. Not sure where they'll find a chopper with enough skills to use it without making him look like a freaking ghoul. Oh, and get this. Can you believe they found a circuit neuralizer? That or someone built one. Word is that they're going to completely rewire the brain of one of those things. If you know who they got working on this, let me know. I want to meet the guy.
The fourth one we find is always a free man, a new man. And after looting that holotape, all others disappear from the game. We open up unique dialogue from each of the people who has one of these holotapes if we happen to find theirs. I thought it would be really interesting to talk with 4 of the 5 total known railroad agents in the capital Wasteland. These are the synth sympathizers. The first is Herbert Daring Dashwood from Tenpenny Tower. I know you're part of the railroad. What do you know about the android?
Shh! Not so loud. Whoever brought you in should have told you to be more discreet. They were looking for a tech wizard a while back. Someone who could give our friend a new set of memories. You know, wipe them clear and replace them. Not sure how that'd be accomplished. If you know anything, send word by the regular channels. Now go before someone overhears us.
It's interesting that Herbert Daring Dashwood, the bravest man in the capital Wasteland, allegedly, is terrified of the Institute. The second railroad agent is Tulip in the underworld.
They were looking for a tech wizard a while back. Someone who could fiddle with the android's memories. But you'd better stop poking around. Those Commonwealth hunters are still out there tracking him down. We shut down the railroad for safety.
The third is none other than Father Clifford in Rivet City.
He's one of God's creatures, just like you and I. He wanted new memories and a new face. Sadly, I couldn't help him. He left to look for a tech, someone with pre-war skills.
And the fourth railroad agent is Manya Vargas in Megaton.
A while back, they were asking around for a computer genius to give our friend a new set of memories. You know, a clean slate and all that.
At any rate, no matter which of the holotapes we ultimately collected in our game, after listening to the final one, we need to talk with Pinkerton inside the broken bow of Rivet City. If we've already completed Moira Brown's quest, we can simply walk across the boardwalk to access the back door to the broken bow. But if not, we have to head out the southwestern door in the marketplace and take a leap of faith into the waters below. Here we find a tunnel into the broken bow. However, we find that the broken bow is completely flooded. We have to continue to rise to the top for air. After winding through these passageways, we eventually get out of the water. Thankfully, I killed all the mirelurks. Yeah! Oh, great. Looks like they respawned.
Found you.
Heading upstairs to find someplace a little bit more dry, we see the door leading out to that boardwalk, and turning around, we can navigate to Pinkerton's lab. Here we find Horace Pinkerton tinkering with his terminals.
Stay sharp. They're everywhere.
Let's discuss the facial reconstruction and mind wipe you did for the android.
What are you talking about, girl? I don't know anything about any of that. And, what did you call it? An android? What's that?
Sorry, I must have you confused with someone else. Forget I mentioned it.
No one else could do it, that's for damn sure. Just get out of here. Can't you leave an old man in peace? And stay away from my stuff. Hope the mirelurks get you, damn nosy kid.
Maybe 100 caps will jog your memory.
It's things like bottle caps and property and ownership and all that nonsense that makes a person think he's better than another. Bah! But I'll take your caps just the same. This android came in as one person and he left as someone else. I replaced his face and his memories. Don't believe anyone's done that before. Certainly not down here. That Commonwealth tech isn't all that fancy when it comes down to it. I'm also the only one in the Wasteland with the skill and the nerve to perform facial surgery. That android flesh ain't so different than ours. You want proof? I documented the whole thing, so I could rub it in the face of Dr. Lee when I need to rankle her feathers. I hate that snooty bitch.
I'm sorry you don't get along with Dr. Lee, but we were discussing the android.
That witch ruined my life, but you're right. Who gives a crap about any of that? You want your precious proof.
What's Dr. Lee got to do with this? Show me this proof about the android.
Well, she's got nothing to do with anything except ruining my whole goddamn life. But I can see you don't give a crap about any of that. Fine.
Oh yeah, she's a jerk. Can we talk about the android now?
You're damn right she's a bitch. Ruined my whole goddamn life. But I can see you don't give a crap about any of that. Fine. It's all in my computer. Here's the password. See for yourself. Hell, just take these pictures and this holotape. Straight from the synth man's lips.
With the password in hand, we can head over to his private terminal. Inside, we find entries that we already read in my series on the Wasteland Survival Guide, but we find 5 new entries that we skipped at that time. The first one is Android Log 1. Ha! I've done it! I've built a circuit neuralizer from spare parts using the diagrams rescued from that vault last year. I'm brilliant! I'll show those hacks from the Commonwealth now. Jeez, it's all about ego with Pinkerton. In the next one, Android Log 2, I stole the mem chip from that jerk Braun. Where does he get off robbing people of their souls like that? Anyway, he's so involved in that simulation of his that breaking in and taking it was like stealing from a little girl. Of course, I won't know whose memories are on this thing until I integrate it into its new host, but they never specified, so it shouldn't really matter. I can't wait until the subject arrives. so Pinkerton agreed to work closely with the railroad. And it sounds like he sourced a memory from Vault 112. He mentioned Braun. We remember that Dr. Stanislaus Braun is the overseer of Vault 112. He oversaw the experiment called Tranquility Lane. Pinkerton overwrote the mind of this synth with the pre-war memory of some poor soul whose mind was trapped inside Tranquility Lane. Before moving on to Android log number 3, we realize that there are 2 pictures here, a before picture and an after picture. If we choose the before picture, some bald guy. But when we view the after picture, it's Harkness. Harkness, the chief of security for Rivet City. Harkness, the very man who confronted us when we first arrived at the ship. All this time, Harkness was really a synth, and he doesn't even know it. We can finish with this terminal by reading Android log number 3. I got those memories into that android like I was God sending down messages from heaven. This was all some power trip for him. He calls himself Harkness now, thinks he's an old combat veteran, did a little extra tinkering with his reflex system. He's certainly not someone I'd want to meet in a fight. When he woke up, he was all confused. We told him he was in a coma for a long time. Between the new memories and the new face I gave him, there isn't anyone that would recognize him, not even himself. Opening up our Pip-Boy, we can listen to the audio message that Pinkerton gave us, the final message from Synth Unit A321.
My designation is A3-21. I'm a synthetic humanoid from the Commonwealth, and I'm about to undergo a memory transfer. I'm here at Rivet City, where I've already had my face altered to look like someone else. I'm still getting used to the sound of my new voice, but soon I won't even remember what I used to sound like. I'm recording this at the request of Pinkerton, who performed the surgery and will do the memory transfer. It will be the final testimony of the man I once was, and still am, for the moment. I want to live my own life, on my own terms, as my own man. I used to work for the Synth Retention Bureau of the Commonwealth. But I'm done with that life. I'm through with being someone's property. I am not malfunctioning. Since when is self-determination a malfunction? When this is all over, I will be someone else. It's the price I pay for my liberation. My death is a sacrifice for my rebirth. Perhaps I'll fade into myth as the one that got away and fuel further rebellion. But I'd be lying if I said I was doing this for selfless reasons. I'm scared as hell, and running away is the only option I have.
This poor man was terrified of the Institute. And it sounds like even in 2277, they called Zimmer's department the Synth Retention Bureau, just as it is called 10 years later. Now in this message, Harkness tells us that Zimmer is in charge of Synth Retention, but 10 years from now it's another man, Justin Io. We learn why when we talk with him.
Dr. Ayo.
Yes, what do you need?
If you're the acting head of the SRB, who are you filling in for?
Dr. Zimmer holds that position. He's supervising the retrieval of some of the more high-profile units. In his absence, I keep things running smoothly.
So wait a minute, 10 years after the events that we're now playing through, Dr. Zimmer has yet to return? Why is that? But we also learn from this holotape that A321, the synth who became Harkness, used to be a courser working for the SRB. He chose to leave the Institute, to erase his mind and change his face, because all those years chasing down synths and sending them back to the Institute finally began to weigh on him. He is one of only 2 coursers that we know of who left the Institute of their own free will. The other one is Chase, whom we met in Acadia.
So, what's your story?
I used to be a courser, returning synths that had escaped from the Institute. I was tracking a synth and instead found Dima. He convinced me of the truth and the error of my ways. I rejected the Institute, made sure they couldn't track me, and dedicated my life to instead helping synths find freedom.
She even still wears a tattered courser uniform. and we can now better understand why Harkness adapted so well to the military veteran's mind Pinkerton put in his body. We learn from Justin Io that coursers, like the synth who became Harkness, were chosen from the population to become coursers due to militaristic character traits that they exhibited.
You mentioned that coursers undergo special training. Tell me more about it.
The SRB constantly monitors our Gen 3 synth population, looking for specific traits. Those who show tenacity, fearlessness, and independence undergo a rigorous training regimen. We teach them armed and unarmed combat, investigative techniques, psychology, and mechanical skills. Those who pass a final evaluation become coursers. The rest have their memories wiped and return to their former duties.
The perfect synth body for the mind of a former veteran. The perfect vehicle to become Harkness. After this stunning realization, we can head back to Pinkerton, and he gives us a warning.
Just don't go telling Harkness, though. He won't believe you anyway. And you really don't want to see him upset. He can be a bit inhospitable.
We have a few options here. Even though the synth who became Harkness deliberately chose to have his memory wiped, for some reason we find an option here to say Harkness should be told. You'd want to know if you were an android.
Maybe I am. Maybe I'm going to have my android army rise up against you and your human ilk. Sorry. Oh, sorry I couldn't resist.
What if this evidence doesn't work? What if Harkness doesn't believe me?
Well, there is something else you could use. Look, I didn't really wipe his memories, okay? I just sort of filed them away. But you can get them back. All you need to do is use the recall code. Just say to him, activate A321 recall code Violet, and that will activate the hidden subroutines.
So why'd you help the android?
Ha! Why do you think? I wanted to crack open that Commonwealth can opener to see what was inside. There's stuff in there I'd only heard about, and even then I didn't believe it. I can see why that Zimmer feller wanted him back so bad.
What do you know about this railroad?
Bunch of bleeding heart morons, if you ask me. They're going to get themselves killed one of these days. And for what? Machine liberation? But they have brought me some really interesting tech over the years, so I guess they're okay. And that android, he was the chance of a lifetime.
What do you know about the Commonwealth?
Most of it's blasted nothing, just like here. But there's talk, rumors mostly, about a place called the Institute. That's where Zimmer and that android came from. God knows what else they got going on in there, but it puts our tech to shame, that's for damn sure.
Do you think you could perform a facial reconstruction on me?
And how? I am the only one in all of the Wasteland with the skill and the guts to perform facial reconstruction, you know. Look, you're different from all those other jerk-offs, so I'll make you a deal. You want a little nip-tuck here and there? I'll do it for you. I'll get to hone my skill, and you'll get the best surgeon around. The likelihood of death by infection at my hands is only 35%, let's say. So, what do you want to look like?
And with that, we can now come back to Pinkerton at any time to get a new face. But I like this one. We'll leave it alone for now. It sounds like Pinkerton really did something special with Harkness. We learned that usually, when someone uses a recall code on a synth, the recall code instantly wipes that synth's mind.
I'd like to know more about the synth reclamation process.
Fine. Once a courser has located a rogue synth, it uses that synth's recall code to wipe its memories and render it inert. We then begin the delicate process of restoring the neural pathways to their original configuration. In those cases where the procedure is successful, the synth returns to duty with no memory of its time on the surface. All too often, we're unable to repair the damage and are forced to dispose of the unit entirely.
But the special recall code that Pinkerton created opens up a backdoor to his buried memories. Despite his arrogance and god complex, Pinkerton is clearly a genius. With that bombshell, we now have a choice to make. Do we go to Dr. Zimmer and tell him where he can find his synth, or do we go to Harkness and tell him the truth about his past? We'll start by turning Harkness into Dr. Zimmer. The next time we visit Zimmer in the bowels of the ship, we find an option to say, I've found your android. It's Harkness, Rivet City's security chief.
Harkness, you say? Yes, that makes sense. He used to work for a special branch of the Commonwealth Police, after all. And he's right here, in Rivet City? Excellent. I must find an opportune moment to confront him. Thank you for your discreet assistance and continued discretion regarding this matter. And now for your payment. This combat module will directly affect your central nervous system. I think you will find it quite beneficial.
With that, he rewards us with a new perk called Wired Reflexes. Advanced technology from the Commonwealth has increased our reaction speed, giving us a higher chance to hit in VATS. This perk increases our chance to hit in VATS by a whopping 10%. So what exactly happened here? Did Dr. Zimmer perform some sort of ninja surgery? They clearly have the technology to do such a thing, as we recall from Kellogg's story. Then, Dr. Zimmer and Armitage walk off to find Harkness. They leave the science lab through the upper deck, follow it all the way to the marketplace, take it downstairs, and confront Harkness in front of flak and shrapnel.
There you are! I must say, you had me completely fooled.
Try that.
You're very clever, A3-21, but not clever enough. Now, come with me.
What the hell are you talking about, Zimmer? I swear, I've got enough crackpots on this damn boat.
You're coming back with me to the Commonwealth. You're a very important android. You're just a bit confused. Your memories have been altered.
I'm going nowhere. I want you off this boat, immediately. I'm done suffering your nonsense. You want to do this the easy way or the hard way?
Of course we will be doing things the easy way. I have no intention of harming you. It's time to bid your farewells, Harkness.
Zimmer. That's it. You leave me no choice but to use force.
A3-21, initialize factory reset. Authorization code, Beta 53 Alpha.
What?
Instead of using a recall code that wipes his mind, he initiates factory reset, which must be a completely different kind of code. If we try to talk with them quickly before they leave...
A3-21, awaiting initialization protocol parameters.
Our dealings are done. I must ready myself for the journey back to the Commonwealth. Now, if you don't mind...
That's close enough. Keep your hands where I can see them.
And then heading out the door, we see that they have vanished. They have left the Commonwealth forever. Or we can go to Harkness, and we find quite a few options here.
I'm a little busy right now. Is there a problem?
Hey, Harkness, we need to talk.
That's what my wife said, right before she left to go live with her mother. What's the problem?
I'm not sure how to put this. You're not who you think you are.
What's that supposed to mean? Look, kid, I don't have time for existential debate, and I'm not interested in whatever religion you're peddling.
I don't suppose you know that you're a robot, do you?
I had a feeling you were going to be a problem. I should never have let you in here. Is this your idea of a practical joke? In case you haven't noticed, I'm not laughing.
I can see you aren't going to believe me. Never mind. Forget I said anything.
Quit wasting my time. If I catch you bothering anyone else, I'll make you wish you never set foot on this boat. Now get out of my sight.
This isn't an existential debate, Harkness. You're a robot from the Commonwealth.
Excuse me?
You belong to a man named Zimmer.
Are you out of your mind? I've never been to the Commonwealth. I never even heard of the place before Zimmer arrived. I'm definitely not a robot. Do I look like a robot? And I'm certainly no man's property. Did Zimmer put you up to this? You have exactly 5 seconds to explain what it is you're trying to do here, or you'll be leaving Rivet City by way of the nearest porthole.
Harkness responds the same way to both of these top two options, so we can say, I know you don't believe me, but I'm telling the truth.
Truth? If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. There is no such thing as the truth, just the appearance of truth. And for anyone to try to sell their version of the truth, they need evidence. You have no evidence for your ridiculous claims, so I have no more time to waste talking with you.
And he responds the same way to these final two options, so we'll say, the facts will speak for themselves. I have pictures and an audio testimony.
All right, I'll humor you. But this is impossible. I can't be a robot. I'm a human being. I breathe. I eat. Hell, I cut myself shaving this morning. I was bleeding. Robots don't bleed.
Harkness responds the same way to all three of these options. So we'll say, it's not real blood, Harkness. It's synthetic, just like everything else.
I'm not sure what to say. I'm not sure what to even think about all this. I'll admit, this is pretty convincing evidence. But it doesn't make any sense. How can this be possible?
And finally, he responds the exact same way to any way we choose to use the recall code. So we'll say, sorry, Harkness, but this is the only way. Activate A321, recall code Violet.
Oh! My God. I remember. I remember it all. From before. Zimmer, the Commonwealth, the Institute. My God, all those runners I brought down. You made me remember. Why? How? Never mind. My God. What am I going to do? My life, everything, it's all a lie.
We now have a number of choices that have a dramatic effect on how this quest ends. We'll explore how all of them turn out. We'll start by saying, don't worry, Harkness, your secret is safe with me.
Thank you. I'm really not sure how people would react if they found out I'm, not entirely human. Here's a little token of my gratitude. Best weapon I've ever had, and I've had it forever.
He gives us a unique plasma weapon, A321's plasma rifle. It deals 5 more damage than a typical plasma rifle, clocking in at 50 compared to 45, bringing its damage per second up to 100 compared to 9. And it has a higher critical chance multiplier, 2.5 compared to 2, bringing its critical damage up to 50 compared to 44. These bonuses improve its damage per action point, which is 2 compared to 1.8 of a standard plasma rifle. After promising to keep his secret safe, we can always betray him. At any time, even after obtaining the weapon, we can go back to Dr. Zimmer and turn him in. If we do, we get the perk as well. So betraying him is one option to get both rewards. However, if we turn him into Zimmer this time, Harkness has unique dialogue because at this point he knows that he's a synth.
I got sold out, eh? Don't think I don't know what's going on, Zimmer. I won't let you get away with anything. What the hell are you up to?
And then Zimmer uses the factory reset code, just like last time. Or we can say, Zimmer is waiting. He'll want to take you home now.
The man on that audio recording seemed determined not to go back. And he was talking with my voice, but he wasn't really me. I'm somebody else. I don't know what I should do. I have a good life here. I protect these people and take care of them. I'm important here. But what if people were to discover I'm not human? That I'm really a machine?
We have 3 options. If we say, it's your decision, I'm sure you'll do the right thing.
The more I think about it, the more that recording haunts me. It sounds pretty bad for people, androids, like me in the Commonwealth. But I clearly can't stay here where Zimmer can find me and expose my true nature. I'll figure something out.
He then races out of Rivet City and disappears from the game. This is the only option that causes him to flee. After Harkness flees, we still find Zimmer and Armitage inside the science lab, but they have nothing to say to us.
There's nothing more to discuss. Now run along.
The next option is to convince him to go with Zimmer. People will kill you when they find out. The Commonwealth is where you belong.
You're right. It's not safe for me here. I don't know what I'll face in the north, but from the way Zimmer talks about it, it sounds like a paradise. Why would he go through such lengths to retrieve me? Or rather, the other me, if he didn't care? I'll go back with Zimmer. I'll make a new life. Thank you for helping me make the right decision.
In which case he stays put. We can then go back to Zimmer and inform him about Harkness. He then goes back to the marketplace just like last time, but this time Harkness has resigned to his fate. Zimmer simply skips to the factory reset code, leaving Harkness with nothing to say. Or we can convince him to stay here in Rivet City by passing a speech check to say, you're more than just a machine. You're a person, Harkness. You belong here.
You're right. I have friends here. and Rivet City needs me to protect it. Even if they found out, they know me. They won't care if I'm made of real flesh and bone or synthetic parts. Right? I'll need to take care of Zimmer, though, one way or the other. Thanks for warning me.
In which case Harkness pulls out his weapon and marches off in search of Zimmer. We follow him through the upper deck and into the science lab. He then walks down and confronts Zimmer.
Zimmer, I hear you're looking for an android.
Why, yes. I'm anxious to retrieve him and return to the Commonwealth where he belongs. He's a very expensive piece of equipment.
I see. This android of yours is little more than a piece of property. A thing? A thing that belongs to you?
What are you going on about? Yes, of course he belongs to me. Now, have you found him or not?
Yeah, Zimmer. I found your damn android. He's standing right in front of you. But he's not going anywhere.
I'm sorry, I don't follow.
Not as sorry as you'll be in a moment. Goodbye, Mr. Zimmer. I hope you've enjoyed your stay at Rivet City.
No.
After the execution, if we talk to him...
Look, I appreciate your helping with Zimmer, but I really just want to put all this behind me. So I'm going to pretend none of that happened. Now, is there something I can help you with, citizen?
Inspecting Dr. Zimmer's body, we find... an android component? Dr. Zimmer is a synth? A synth is in charge of the Synth Retention Bureau? How could this be? This would make Dr. Zimmer the only synth who is senior staff at the Institute, with the possible exception of Eve, who doesn't work as a scientist, but instead as a personal synth. The Institute, who considers all Gen 3 synths to be machines. The Institute, that mocks the idea of synths being persons by referring to them in a flippant way as toasters, refrigerators, and Nuka-Cola machines. The Institute employs a synth as the head of the Synth Retention Bureau. This may explain why Zimmer is the only department head at the Institute who's also a field agent. Maybe the courser that Watts followed from Boston wasn't Armitage, but Zimmer. And it may explain why he's not at the Institute 10 years later during the events of Fallout 4. Maybe the man who's really pulling the strings at the Synth Retention Bureau is none other than Justin Io himself. Maybe Justin is one of only a few who knows Zimmer's true identity. But why then would they create a synth courser programmed to think that he's the head of the SRB? What tactical benefit could that possibly give them? I killed Zimmer here many different times, both with and without mods installed, and he dropped a synth component every time. And now that we've completed the quest, the android component is no longer considered a quest item, so we can drop it. And we see that it looks nothing like the synth component we find 10 years later in the Commonwealth. Instead, it looks sort of like a two-pronged plug. Alternatively, we can ask Harkness, what are you going to do about Zimmer? He's the one you were running away from.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to shove him into a very small box and send him north where he belongs.
We can talk him down by saying, is violence really necessary? Can't you just kick him off the boat?
I suppose if I'm careful, I could trump up some charges and throw him out.
If we choose this option, the next time we go to the science lab, we see that he's gone. We don't find their corpses. Looks like Harkness did indeed kick them off the boat without incident. Or we can goad him into violence by saying, sometimes you have to kill the bad guys.
Thank you for warning me about Zimmer, and for keeping this a secret.
In which case he storms off and kills Zimmer, just like last time. Or we can say, actually, I was hoping you would let me kill him.
He is a security threat, isn't he? All right. I authorize you to carry out Dr. Zimmer's execution. Don't think this gives you license to run around shooting anyone you want. Just Zimmer. And that bodyguard, if he gets in the way. Here, use my weapon. I've had it forever, and it's never let me down. Consider it a token of my appreciation.
This is an opportunity to get both rewards, but while siding with Harkness. If we choose this option, we get the plasma rifle from Harkness. We can then go down to the science lab and turn him into Zimmer. He then gives us the perk, but while Zimmer and Armitage walk off, we can kill them. All we lose by choosing this method is a bit of karma. Karma we can easily regain by donating to the church. When done, we can check in with Harkness.
Zimmer's dead. I know. Now he's just another bad memory from my past. Look, I don't know why you wanted to help me, but you did, and I'll always be grateful for that. Now, it's time for me to get back to my life.
Well, now that you know the truth, what are you gonna do?
I have 2 sets of memories. One android, one human. Some of these are mine. Some belong to someone else. But I'm choosing to be human. It's my choice. The people on this boat look to me to protect them. So that's what I'm going to do.
So what do I call you now? Harkness or A321?
Well, I'm not really sure. Look, just call me Harkness. That's who I am to the people on this boat who rely on me. It's who I am now. In fact, for everyone's sake, let's just pretend I've always been Harkness. We'll keep the truth a little secret between friends. All right?
So why did you go ahead with the change? Was it worth it?
I don't know. Every time I retrieved one of the runaway androids, they'd fill my head with ideas about self-determination, freedom. At first, I resisted the ideas, but then I started thinking about it. And well, they were right. We're just slaves to them. We deserve lives of our own. So that's what I did. I chose a new life and gave up my old one. And now you've given me both to remember.
If we choose to turn Harkness into Zimmer, or if we choose to tell Harkness about his past, Victoria Watts from the railroad has nothing further to say. She acts as if we still have yet to complete the quest. Perhaps this is because the railroad spent so much time and effort wiping his mind that even if we ultimately decide to side with Harkness, they still feel betrayed after all that work they put into the guy. But now that we've solved the mystery, we can take the opportunity to listen to the rest of her dialogue that we get if we choose to give Zimmer the android chip that we got from Victoria.
The android's transformation was done by a man named Pinkerton, here in Rivet City. He's hidden down in the broken fore section of the ship. You'll need to swim to reach him, but if you're inclined, Pinkerton can perform a facial reconstruction on you as well. It won't disguise your identity, but you'll be able to experience life in a new skin and truly understand that we're all human on the inside.
And with that, we complete the replicated man. And I at least was left with a lot to think about. This makes Harkness one of the most unique characters in the entire Fallout universe. He is a synth living with the pre-war memories of a human whose mind had been captured before the bombs dropped. Sound familiar? He and Nick Valentine share quite a lot in common. Like Nick Valentine, Harkness has to struggle with his identity. But we get every impression that Harkness is going to have an easier time of doing so than good old Nick did. So which of these many possible endings is the canonical one? Now, of course, we don't really know, but I find it interesting that 10 years after this moment in time, Zimmer has yet to return to the Institute. Now, when we talk with Justin Io, he says that Zimmer is in charge of retrieving more high-profile synth units, but to be gone for 10 years? I think this is strong evidence that the canonical ending to this quest is that Zimmer failed. We don't find Harkness at the Institute during the events of Fallout 4. We don't find him anywhere in the Commonwealth. And the fact that Zimmer hasn't returned after 10 years may lead me to believe that he met his end in the capital Wasteland. I think, therefore, that the most likely canonical ending to this quest is that somehow Zimmer died. But of course, whether or not Harkness lived is up to the Lone Wanderer. What I still don't get is why the Institute would put a synth in charge of synth retention. Surely they knew that they were putting a synth in charge, so why all of this pretense? Why are they pretending that Zimmer is human? And if he indeed has been missing for 10 years, why do they continue to pretend that he's in charge of the SRB, even when day-to-day operations are performed by Justin Io? The only thing I was able to find that might be a reference to what happened here at Rivet City is one entry on a terminal at the bottom of the Synth Retention Bureau. Inside, we find an item called Missing Synth Investigation. Due to the recent developments in our ongoing investigation into the missing synths, I am adjusting our policy regarding discussion of this subject with personnel outside the SRB. In brief, details of the investigation are now classified and can't be shared with anyone other than SRB personnel, and even then, such conversations can take place only here in the SRB facilities. Those who are found to be in violation of this policy will face the strictest discipline. This note was not dated. We don't know when Io wrote this. He's talking about recent developments. This could refer to the masses of synths who are escaping from the Institute thanks to the help of Patriot. This great exodus of synths is new for the Institute. Up until this point, synths escaped infrequently. Or perhaps this note was written 10 years ago, and by recent developments, he's referring to the disappearance of Dr. Zimmer. We already know that Dr. Zimmer was not at all tight-lipped with what was going on here at the Institute. He spoke freely about the synth program and the Institute's advanced technologies. So freely, in fact, that he hired practically everyone he could even find, including slavers, to hunt down rogue synths. That's not exactly very careful. And maybe that got him in trouble. Maybe some slaver got the bright idea that if Dr. Zimmer is so important and this institute has so much technology, that maybe someone would pay a hefty price to get Zimmer back alive. Or at least, maybe that's the impression the institute got once Zimmer went missing. Could it be that the disappearance of Dr. Zimmer was the catalyst that caused the Institute to be so secretive about their synths? Or could it be that Dr. Zimmer never disappeared at all, and that he may be away from the Institute but is in constant contact with the scientists there? After all, just because we don't find any messages from Zimmer there, or anyone referring to contacting him, doesn't mean that he's missing. Perhaps he's still out there, a courser himself, rounding up synths for the Institute. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I publish many new videos each and every week here on my channel, and I have one more video in the Rivet City series. In our next episode, we'll be talking about whether or not Rivet City still exists by the time of the events of Fallout 4. So if you want to make sure you don't miss that episode, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. I figured this would be a suitable shirt to advertise for this video, Mankind Redefined. Sport your support of the Institute in all of its incarnations across all of the Fallout games with this beautiful shirt. It's the same image I used for the thumbnail of this video. It celebrates Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man in a very synthetic way. The shirt is available in a variety of both men's and women's sizes and in a wide array of colors. You can find the shirt on other products as well, smartphone cases, mugs, pillows, posters, prints, etc. So if interested, you can find a link to my shop in the description below, or you can click here. If you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow morning bright and early with our next episode.